Hey guys, Cecil here once again. Hey, I just wanted to apologize really quick and say I'm sorry that I haven't done much content in the last few months. Work and life have just been kind of keeping me a little too busy in order to do a lot of quality videos. But hopefully now that's going to change a little bit. I'm ready to start doing more again. I'm going to try to do at least one a week. That's my goal over the next few months as we get closer to fall. Just to keep things on my channel fresh since I've got over 200 subscribers now. Thank you very much, guys. That is awesome. I honestly, when I started this, I didn't think I'd get that many. I just figured I'd just throw some videos out there, and I'm glad people are actually watching, and that does mean a lot to me. So thank you very much for subscribing, and stay tuned. There's going to be a lot more content coming in the next few months. As you can tell by the title of this video today, I'm going to be doing another comparison video, and that's two models of the Game Boy Advance. That's the Game Boy Advance SP versus the Game Boy Micro. There was kind of some controversy when the Game Boy Micro came out in 2005 in comparison to the Game Boy Advance SP. You know, Nintendo took a lot of the features out of it, and I'll explain that a little bit. I mean, they took a lot of features out of it compared to what the Game Boy Advance SP can do, sold it for a higher price and everything. And I remember a lot of people were really hesitant to get the Game Boy Micro. But I think a lot of the hate, especially now, is kind of unwarranted. And like I said, I'll explain the pros and cons of both handhelds here in a second. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Game Boy line, and I'm sure that's very few of you at this point, the Game Boy has been arguably Nintendo's most popular handheld, ever created. It started in 1989 with the old Brick Boy and the spinach green black and white screen, and then the Game Boy Pocket in the late 90s, Game Boy Color, and then the successor system, I would say the first really true successor to the Game Boy line, was the Game Boy Advance. It was a significant upgrade in power, comparable more to the Super Nintendo. It had a 32-bit processor, and games just looked much better. There was actually some 3D even done with it, even though it was more a powerful 2D system. And don't mind the rumbling in the background. There's just some thunderstorms moving through at this juncture in time of the filming of this video. But the Game Boy Advance SP itself, now I probably should have the original version of the Game Boy Advance. Basically, it was just didn't have a backlit screen. It was kind of hard to see a lot of colors. It looked really washed out. It was kind of hard to see if you didn't have direct light on it. But the SP was a major improvement over that. It simplified the handheld, made it a lot more portable. But the main benefit of it was the fact it had, as you can see, a backlit screen. I remember when the original version of the Game Boy Advance came out, people were actually sending it to people who would put a backlight in it, just so it would be easier to see the games in the dark or in poorer lighting. But this finally fixed that issue when this came out in 2003. This is the NES SP version. I actually traded my original version of the SP just to get this, even though it's more or less just a glorified sticker, but it more or less looks like the NES. And there was a line of Game Boy NES to Game Boy Advance card titles that were $20 a crack, which was kind of expensive, but I got a lot of them on sale. But overall, it's very comfortable to hold, very quality, solidly built. Battery lasts a long time even with the backlight on, and that's cool. And it can play either GBA or Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, and that's fantastic. All the ports on the side, has your power switch on the side here, the volume switch on the other side, and it's got two ports on the back, one for charging and one for the link cable. Now, the one thing that I wasn't a big fan of with the SP was the lack of a headphone jack, and that was a really big detractor in comparison to the original model. That was the one really knock I had on this console. Now, that doesn't mean you can't use headphones. What you have to do is there was an adapter you could get that would plug into the link cable port, and then you plug your headphones into it, and then you could play your use your headphones when you're playing your Game Boy Advance. The only negative to that is when you wanted to play multiplayer with headphones, you were kind of screwed because that link cable port was taken up by the link cable. But it was a minor gripe, admittedly, and usually when you're playing multiplayer with friends anyways, you're going to want to be more social and not have headphones on anyways. And there were two actual versions of the Game Boy Advance SP. They basically look identical. There is absolutely no difference in function, in ports, or anything. But this newer model, which I picked up secondhand relatively recently, had one major improvement, and it's called the Game Boy Advance SP Plus. in a lot of circles, and hopefully you're going to be able to see this. But you can see, if you look at both handhelds here, if you look at the SP Plus on the side, you can see the screen is a lot brighter. And this is because this screen is backlit. This is a frontlit screen on the original version of the SP. And a lot of people try to find, when they buy SPs, they try to find this particular model just because it has that backlight. And it just looks so much better. This actually has the same screen that the Game Boy Micro uses, so Nintendo basically took the SP and just improved it that much more. And things really pop when you play Game Boy Advance games on the SP Plus. But I just wanted to show you that real quick since there was a difference. So if you're looking for a Game Boy Advance SP, try to get the SP Plus. These aren't all that easy to find. They're a little bit more expensive than the original model of the SP, and I'll explain how to tell the difference between the two in a sec here. But I want to move on to the Game Boy Micro. Now the Game Boy Micro, I guess you could call it the third iteration of the Game Boy Advance. Its functionality was exactly the same. It played all GBA games, but the one really big knock on this was the fact it did not play Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. They do not fit in the cartridge slot here. So you're purely stuck with a Game Boy Advance player. And when this system came out, it was $100. While the SP was going for $90. So basically, you're getting a stripped down Game Boy Advance, very small, for less money that had less function. And at that time, a lot of people were saying, don't even bother with the Micro. It's not worth your time. It's more expensive. It does less. But that was back then. Today, the Micro, I think, is a fantastic little thing to have. The fact it only does GBA isn't necessarily a bad thing any longer. There's a huge library of Game Boy Advance games. You know, all the major Mario titles, you know, Zelda Four Swords and Zelda A Link to the Past, Fire Emblems, tons of RPGs, the Golden Suns, so many great GBA games that you can find nowadays. Some are a little less expensive, some are more, depending, but still a fantastic library of games. The one thing I do like about the Micro in comparison is they did add a headphone jack. So they eliminated the need for that stupid link cable adapter so you could do headphones on the SP. It actually has the headphone jack built into the unit. The only downside is to do link cable stuff with other GBAs, you need an adapter because it only has one port on the top, and you have to, this acts as both the power port and the link cable port. So when you're recharging the console, it's a proprietary cable, so you actually had to get an adapter to play multiplayer GBA games with other SPs that made it more like the SP's link cable port. So that was a negative of this. The fact it didn't play GBA game or Game Boy Colors was the other kind of big knock on it. But functionality-wise, as you can see, the screen looks very crisp and bright, very vibrant. You can actually adjust the brightness. I forget how to do that specifically. You actually have to have a game in there and hold a certain set of buttons, which is fine. And actually the select and start buttons will light up when the battery is starting to get lower when it's charging, which is kind of cool. But let me just grab the SP Plus here, and you can actually see the comparison of screen brightness and volume and everything. And oh great, battery died, my bad. I didn't give this enough chance to charge. But overall, as you can see, the screen is very bright. The games play very well, even though you might be a little hesitant with this tiny screen. Don't be turned off. Games are very readable, even RPGs with text. You can see it very well. And it's well worth your time. These are a little bit more expensive now because it wasn't a very popular version of the handheld. The prices on these have gone up a little bit, not a ton, but they've got a bit of a collector value. I think the last ones I've seen these are about, the original model of the SP I think is about 25 to 30. The SP Plus is probably 40 to 50, and the Micros are probably pushing over $50 now, just because they aren't very easy to find. However, there's one other feature of this particular handheld, the Micro, that I think is worth noting, and that it was kind of an interesting thing Nintendo was trying to do. You can't really see it, or I can't really demonstrate it because I don't have the tool to pop this off, but this actually, kind of like the Xbox 360, it has interchangeable faceplates. Mine actually came with a bunch of different ones, like kind of like a hot pink or a wood grain. Actually, this model initially shipped with a silver screen front with the black, and there was also actually a silver color of this as well with a black screen face on it. And I actually tracked down a black screen face to go on my black Micro just to have a uniform color. There was, like I said, there was the silver, black, and there was also a Famicom edition of this released. So you might see a Famicom themed Game Boy Micro if you do like a search on eBay or Amazon for the handheld nowadays. So overall, I would say the Micro is worth your time for a collector. Maybe not so much if you're looking for a pure Game Boy player. If you want a portable Game Boy player, I would definitely suggest the SP. Even though you can't use headphones with it without the headphone adapter, the fact it has the full array of GBA and Game Boy Color and Game Boy Black and White games, as well as the Advance library, is why this is still probably the better buy. It's cheaper, it's easier to find. If you're trying to find the SP Plus, what you're going to want to do, and there's guides out online, but there's one main feature that you want to look, and that's the model number. If you look at the original model of the SP, and it's going to be, you can't really see it, but it says model number AGS001. This is the original model of the Game Boy Advance SP that did not have the backlit screen. It had the front lit screen. It's very playable, don't get me wrong, but compared to the it's front lit compared to the backlit screen of the SP Plus, this is probably the more desired SP, and these are a little bit more expensive than the original model. Like I said, it's AGS001. That's the original model of the SP Plus with the front lit screen. If you look at the back of the SP Plus, it's AGS 101. So if you're looking for an SP Plus specifically, if you're like at a local retro store or a pawn shop looking at their Game Boy Advance SPs, try to find the model with the AGS 101. Some places may not even pay attention to a fine little detail like that. This one I found at a local secondhand store for $10. I got a really, really good deal on this a few months back. Cosmetically, it's not in the best shape, but it plays just fine, and just for it to play and to pal around, it's great. But not that, like I said, I would say if you're looking to get one, get the Game Boy Advance SP, especially the SP Plus version if you can find it. But for pure collector value and kind of a cool novelty, the Micro is fantastic. This is about as portable as a portable gets. It's so small, it fits right in your pocket. There's actually a port on the side here where you can stick like a wrist protector, which can actually carry it around, or maybe even put a keychain on it, although I wouldn't recommend putting this with your keys. Even though it's probably small enough to do it, because you're going to beat the handheld up just with it banging against the keys. But it's a great, great handheld. I'm glad I picked this up when it came out. I had some extra money, which is why I spent the $100, and I'm a whore for Nintendo handhelds and consoles anyways, so why not? So that's my comparison of the Game Boy Advance SP versus the Game Boy Micro. Let me know what you guys think in the section in the comments down below. Do you have either one of them? Have you ever held the Micro? Have you ever played it? Have you ever tried it? Are you big, or just you never bothered with it? You only went with the Game Boy Advance SP, and I know a lot of people did. Let me know what you think of the handhelds down below. Otherwise, you guys take it easy, and I'll see you next time.